Hi everyone, I am Denise and welcome to Working in Fashion. Today I am very happy because I chat with Mariana Lima. She's a Brazilian fashion designer, podcaster, and the founder of Moda and Mochila community. Mariana's journey from Brazil to Canada is one of resilience and ambition. Despite the challenge of immigration and living in another country, she made her own space in the Canadian fashion industry. Mariana reminds me that language and culture should never limit our dreams. Through her podcast, she interviewed another Brazilians working in the global fashion industry, showing us that with determination, anything is possible. I am Argentinian living in the beautiful Vancouver, Canada. I have worked 8 years in the fashion industry as a digital pattern maker and fashion designer. Every week, I will bring an episode to share my experiences as a pattern maker, and I will have an amazing guest who will share their experiences. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire, learn, and show you the insight of the fashion industry. I am Denise Afonso, and you are listening to Working in Fashion. Hi, Mariana. Thank you, and welcome to Working in Fashion.
Hello, Denise. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. We have so much in common. So I'm excited to share a bit of my story with you and also learn a lot from your story as well.
Yes, Mariana, I am so excited. Well, Mariana she's from Brazil. Like maybe you will listen my introduction talking about her. But she's Brazilian, but she's currently living in Toronto, Canada. So we are Latins, and we work in the fashion industry as well. She has a podcast, Moda and Mochila, that I am trying to learn Portuguese, so I try to listen it. And I was talking with Mariana before to start to record this podcast, like I have to say, Mariana, that you are like inspiration because I can see like all your hard work and how you are working in the fashion industry, like a Latin, like an immigrant person, and maybe like you have to fight with this limitation thought or beliefs like, oh, I am not from this country, or it's hard to find a fashion company to work. So my idea is to start to review all your yes resume or history about working. So Mariana, I always start. How did you start to work in fashion?
Wow, this is a great question. And I come from a textile hub.
Oh,
My city is called Joinville. It's very popular. There's so many mills and factories that make textiles for bed linens, towels, this type of things. But other cities close to my area, they're very strong in apparel. So they're big industries that make the whole process of the fashion industry from weaving, dyeing, sewing, all process. So I was born in that area. So many aunts of mine, they are professional seamstresses. The women that are not professionally in the apparel field, they are also very strong in like crafts, arts and crafts, this type of situation. So I was born into that area. So it was very easy for me when I decided to study fashion, go to university. My family supported me fully. My friends, it was very easy for everyone to see that I would not going to starve from working in fashion. And I hear that from people a lot. People that are from different states that are not very strong in fashion, that their parents didn't support them. But for me it was different. It was very easy for me to go into that path, and I think that's like how it all started. And I even had the opportunity to study fashion during high school.
yeah.
So it was like kind of like a vocational course, in a very big school from Brazil called Senai. And that kind of school, it gets like money grants from industries, from the region. So I didn't have to pay a lot for the course as well. And I was able to get my first job in the fashion area right after high school,
What?
before going to university. So that was amazing for me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think that it helps a lot to work like no, to live and born in a fashion city, right? And for
Yes,
sure Brazil is like very famous for fashion, colors, prints, right? For the fashion industry. And it's amazing that in your high school they teach you about fashion. Even like yesterday, we have like a fashion event of networking, and I was talking with a girl that she's creating like a community here in Vancouver, Canada. She's trying to give like free classes of sewing and fashion
I love
because it's
that.
like yes, we have to teach like young people like to know all the valuable things and learn how to do that in the future, right? So amazing.
Definitely. Yeah. I also studied 3D for a short time. I did some course to learn a little bit of glow.
Mm,
And at that time, when the pandemic was happening and everyone was like super into that, I thought, okay, this is the future of fashion. Forget about manual things. Digital is the rule right now.
yeah.
But after that, I started thinking that the manual is also super important. It is super important to learn 3D and digital fashion, but in the future we might not have all the resources to make so many like pieces of garments. Then we'll have to know to learn these manual techniques to
Mm.
fix what we already have. So I think both are super important, digital and manual.
Yes, I have the same feeling, and I have a feeling that well, this is like something that I believe, but I think that the fashion industry is going to this like future, like 3D, all the digital softwares, and how this technology they can help you, but at the same time we have to return to the traditional fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not
Mm-hmm.
produce like 500 pieces for well, but it's something that I believe. And
Exactly.
yesterday we are talking about sustainability too, so
Amazing.
great. And Mariana, so you finished in high school, you started to work in the fashion industry, and then like how was your experience in Brazil and then how you decided to move to Canada?
Oh wow, that was wild.
Mm,
Yeah, I found a great job in,
mm,
like I said, like a big one of the biggest companies in Brazil. Actually, not sure if you heard about them. They're called Malve. It's Malwee. They are like a group, and
yeah.
they have many brands inside of this group. And one of the brands, they have like two or three children's wear brands. And I got a job on my second year of university as a apparel designer there.
Wow.
Yeah. My professor Andressa, she already was interviewed by
Our
you.
friend, yeah.
Yeah, she recommended me for this position. She recommended me and other students as well that were the top students.
Oh.
So I built my portfolio. I applied super quickly, went over all the interviews, and I got the job. My second year university, I would never thought that I would be able to find a job as a apparel designer. I thought I had to work as an assistant for so many years until I got the job, but I got it. It
Mm,
was amazing. I grew a lot in that company. I even was transferred to Sao Paulo, a bigger city, on that job. So I was growing a lot, but I always wanted to have the experience of living abroad.
mm,
Um, in Brazil, I'm not sure how it is in Argentina, but it is very popular. It is very important. The graduation ceremony of university. I'm
mm,
not talking about the graduation ceremony where they give you your certificate. I'm talking about the party. The party is super important and it happens after the official graduation ceremony. And I've started, so people start to plan for this party like very
early.
very early, like in the second year of university.
Wow.
And I remember that I paid only one installment, and I stopped paying because I said, I might not even be here because I want to live abroad. I want to like do an interchange program. I might not even be here for the graduation party because I already had that on my mind.
Yeah.
And in the on those years, the Brazilian government created an exchange program that was very like was amazing. Many friends of mine went to Europe or North America for this exchange program, but I couldn't get in. I applied too late. The program like was over in like 2 years. They didn't. I guess the government used up all the money to send some young people. And anyways, I couldn't get in.
Mm.
But I still had that idea of moving abroad. I was already dating my husband, currently my husband, and we would always discuss that. And we were searching for a few countries, and it turns out that his professor from university had already studied in Canada, and he encouraged him to apply for a master's degree um, in Canada as well, and
Mm.
he got in. So he got in, he was accepted into this master's, and he also got a scholarship for it. So besides not paying for the master's, he also got an extra money to live here.
Wow.
So that was like a no-brainer for us, because like people that are listening might be interested in working in Canada, and living in Canada. It is very expensive, just it's expensive to study here as an international student. So for us, it was a no-brainer. We would come to Canada. We wouldn't have to pay a lot of money to come, and we've always wanted to live abroad.
Mm.
But and that's how we decided to come. But we got married super quickly. We had already been dating for like so many, like 8 years. I don't remember now. And we thought that's our time.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, my idea was to come with him to improve my English. So I couldn't study here because I had another visa, and I would have to pay a lot of money also to study as an international student.
Mm.
So I decided that I would work on improving my English and find a job. I didn't know where yet. I was just determined to come here and improve my English.
Perfect. And Mariana, so you finished the university in Brazil? Oh, great.
Yes, I finished university, and I also lived for 1 year in Sao Paulo. So I finished my contract, and I had to move to Canada couple of months after my husband moved to
Mm.
finish the 1 year contract.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Great. And how was your experience like coming to Canada? That these parts, I think that we have like similar things, right? Because you come to a new country, a new language, and I don't know you, but I was thinking, oh, I know how to speak English because my mom, she always sent me to English classes, right? I think
Yeah.
that my mom, she can see that English was a future, or maybe she know that English will be the international language, I will say. But then when I come here, I remember going to the bank, and it was like, I don't know English. I don't know how to speak. And even like my accent, right? And my pronunciation. The Argentinian, we have like some pronunciation that then when I try to speak in English, it's like, no, it's, it's very hard. And even the cultural things. And we are very passionate about fashion, right?
Hmm.
I can feel it. So how was all this process?
I'm going to start with a quote.
Yeah, okay.
Ignorance might be a blessing. And you
Mm.
know what? Before moving to Canada, I spent 2 weeks here by myself. It was my first and only trip that I've traveled alone.
Mm.
We were already planning to move to Canada, and I wanted to travel by myself, because when someone like in Brazil asked me, "Do you speak English?" I always told them, I can get around by myself. Yeah, I can. I think I can speak and not starve and just like do the basic things. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna just go into this trip by myself and confirm if I am able to travel by myself and speak English by myself, because all the times that I've traveled before for work or personal travel, I came with someone that spoke English fluently. So I didn't have 100% confidence in myself. So I wanted to prove for me that I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I came to Canada. I came to Toronto actually for 2 weeks. And I finally proved to myself that I could um, do groceries by myself, go to a hotel by myself, etc. But I found out that I was not ready to work in fashion as a designer, because I knew that from my experience in Brazil, that as a fashion designer, you have to present collections, you have to speak about the products that you are developing, about the concept, and explain everything, the technical vocabulary. So I didn't have that. So when I moved to Canada for real, I was like, okay, I can do basic things, but I cannot be a designer yet because my English is not great. And I thought that that would take a long time to like improve. So when I came to Canada to live here, I started going to some very cheap English classes in the church. That even for people that are PR residents, they can do it for free. So if you are just if you have like a working visa or study visa, you can pay very little. But after a few sessions, I got so bored by
Mm-hmm.
those classes, and I decided to take a new approach. I started going to conversation classes in the library, meeting new people. I started going to workshops and events for entrepreneurship, for women entrepreneurs or Gen Z entrepreneurs. And it was a very great experience for me because I was having English classes for free because I could speak with people that are fluent in English for free. I would also get advice, like life, career advice from these people. And I didn't have like a business or anything, but I think it was a very important for me to go there because entrepreneurs, they are always very open to
To
connect,
talk.
to
Mm-hmm.
talk and connect with
Yeah.
people. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you are shy, I'm a little bit shy, they would come to me and ask about myself. So I was forced to speak and to not speak only basic things in English, but speak like more complex phrases. So it was very important for me to improve my English and to meet new people in the industry. Um, and the third thing was finding my first job. So some people, like even Brazilians, I didn't hear that from people from other cultures or even Canadians. They told me, "Oh, you should look for a job in a restaurant or in a coffee shop or cleaning or whatever because it's very quick. It's quicker to find a job in those fields." But I had already planned myself financially to have this like a few months to look for the job that I actually wanted. So my plan was to find a job that had at least a tiny relation that was
With the
tiny,
fashion.
yeah, with fashion. And I started looking for jobs in alterations, in fabric shops as a sales associate. These types of jobs that were not like a design job, but
Mm-hmm.
that were connected to fashion. And my first job was at IKEA in the textiles department specifically. And I thought that would look very nice on my LinkedIn because it would say textiles co-worker. I thought that was very chic. I thought that would impress people and would have the textiles in my job position, and it might even help with SEO, with the search engine optimization. So there I improved my English even further in the textiles, talk specifically about textile vocabulary. And that's basically how my career in fashion textiles started in Canada.
Mm. No, and I always say that first you have to start with something, right? Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
in IKEA, I love IKEA. The fabric is cheap, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
But there you can learn about fabrics, right? Because it's not the same name that you call in Brazil, I imagine that in Canada, right? Even
Exactly.
myself too, I was working for a sale store,
Mm-hmm.
Dressel, here in Vancouver, selling fabric too. And how here the fashion, the film industry is huge. I started to meet people from Disney, from Netflix. Yes, it was amazing this experience, and I learned about fabrics. And even I remember that then I started my PDF pattern shop, right? Because then I
Whoa.
realized that people love to make their own clothes. So it's like you never know, Mariana. Like first, you always have to do like your first step. So good, and something that I take about all your stories, like you have to show up,
Yes.
right? Always you
Yeah.
have to show up. Even like yesterday, I have a fashion event, and I remember the first time that I went, I was too shy, and I think that I only talked with 5 people. And
Mm-hmm.
yesterday was like, okay, I am a new Denise. I am not this shy Denise, and I will talk with everyone because everyone's saying, Denise, you're not shy. Well, you think that you are not shy because we have a podcast, maybe.
Yeah.
But another thing is like to go to an event and present yourself and talk with
So
everyone,
different.
right? It's like so different. Like,
Yeah, yeah, you have to show up, and in the beginning it will be hard. Like
mm,
we were just saying it, you might not approach anyone, but many people might approach you. I just came from a trade show close to Vancouver, actually in Portland. It's
yes, I saw
called
that.
Fabric Functional Fabric Fair. There were so many people there from Nike, Arc'teryx, all these outdoorsy brands, and I gave everyone my business card. So many people started following me and connecting with me on LinkedIn. I was so impressed that sometimes I hear from a lot of people. I'm not sure how it is in Argentina, but in Brazil, some people still have a lot of they don't use the LinkedIn as much as they
Mm,
could. Some people don't even have LinkedIn because they think it's like a toxic social media,
mm.
but it helped me a lot to get my jobs here in Canada. So I always encourage people to
To
be
have
on
it.
LinkedIn. And um you see, I didn't even had to do like anything. People started connecting with me and sending me messages after I gave them my physical business card. And
Yeah.
if we didn't have LinkedIn, maybe the business cards would just get lost. And now we have the connection there, like on a virtual world.
I think that if you are not in this social media, like you are losing a lot.
Mm.
Because even for the company that I am working right now, is because my actual boss sent me a message.
See, exactly, and that happened
Yes.
with me as well in my current job. I sent my manager a message on LinkedIn, and I completely stood out from other like 100
Resumes,
applicants.
application. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I will go to, I want these tips. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after that, you were working in IKEA, and I know that there they come like your opportunity to work like a fashion designer, finally.
Yeah, I did. I before actually applying to IKEA, um I had participated in I had to subscribe myself for a program in a place that is made for, I think, from the government, called Employment Ontario. Ontario is a province that I live,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure if that still
Like open.
is
Oh, they still
open
doing it.
for,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure if that's still open for people that have working visa only and then are not permanent residents. But at
Mm-hmm.
that time that I participated, it was open for people that had a working visa.
Mm-hmm.
So this person, it was a counselor, job counselor. This person helped me to build my resume. She actually built my resume for me, my
Mm-hmm.
Canadian version of resume. I chatted with her for a few hours. She asked about all of my experience, and she asked me which paths I wanted to go. And I told her, okay, I don't think my English is 100% good yet, but I want to create two resumes, one for jobs as a designer and the other one for jobs as a sales associate.
Mm.
So she created these two resumes. I got in, I found a job at IKEA, but I told her, I'm accepting this job at IKEA, but if something comes up in a design position, I would like to apply. And I told her that, and I thought she would never remember me because I thought she had she had closed my case. You know, she had, okay, Mariana found a job. Let's just file her case and not contact her anymore. So I was working at IKEA for 6 or 8 months, something like that. And she called me. She called me telling me that she found a job in a design position, and she asked me if I would like to apply, and I was so shocked
So
that she
nice.
remembered me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if I didn't tell her that specifically, that I wanted to find a job as a designer, maybe she wouldn't have reached out to me.
Yeah.
So I applied for this job that she
Mhm.
contacted me in a small factory in the city that I was living. It was not Toronto back at the
Ah.
time. It was a city called Hamilton.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I applied for this job in a small factory that they make uniforms for sports like
Mm.
basketball, baseball,
Okay.
hockey. And this job was half design, so I had to do the design for the jerseys,
Mm.
all the numbers, letters, mascots, this world. And it was half marketing. I had to work on their social media, create newsletters, and I had never worked in this field before. But luckily, in one of those entrepreneur meetings, I someone told me about a course that it was free for women, either like Latin women or Black women, from this kind of community. So it was a course for graphic design and coding. So I applied for this course. It was 3 months long because I couldn't study in courses that were 6 months, more than 6 months, because of my
Oh,
working
because you had a
visa.
work permit. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my work permit. So I found this. It was free, 3 months. I met so many people there. It was in Toronto, so I also had the opportunity to travel to Toronto every week, meet people from the industry, and also get a diploma, like a certificate for graphic design and coding. So there I started to learn more about how to make like a website. And that was very important for me to get this job in this small factory because it was marketing, social media slash design. So I got the job. It was very impressive for me to be in this manufacturing environment again, because that was something very popular back home in Brazil. But in Canada, it's there are not as many manufacturers as we had back home in Brazil. Many brands, most of the brands here, they produce overseas.
Overseas. Mhm.
Hmm. So it was very special for me. I learned a lot there, but it was not exactly what I wanted. I wanted to go back to children's wear, which
Mhm.
was what I was doing in Brazil. But at least I got my first experience in design in Canada, and that was very special. So children's wear brands are not the it's not the most popular field here in the Toronto area, or don't think either in Vancouver. It's not There are not as many. Um, in Toronto, there are many outerwear brands and even safety apparel brands like for construction. Children's wear is not very popular, but I found a job. I found a job in a company called Flapjack Kids, and they make reversible accessories for kids, like
Wow.
hats, winter hats, bucket hats. And in the beginning, the job application, the description was asking only for print design abilities. But the moment I presented my portfolio and I was interviewed, the owner of the company was like, whoa, okay, so you can do all of these things. And they didn't have a designer at the time. They didn't have a designer, they didn't have a product developer, they didn't have no, like, not a single person that was from the creative side. They only have sales department, and someone that analyzed data, but they didn't have a designer. And the person before me was only doing print design. So the moment I presented myself, they started giving me lots of tasks. It was a small company, so when you work in a smaller company, you have to wear more hats sometimes, and I wore lots of hats.
Wow.
I was taking care of everything creative related. I was creating the collections, the prints. I was doing product development, contacting factories. I was even managing the photo shoots. I did some incredible photo shoots and editorials. I hired Brazilian people to do that for me. So the good thing is that I had a lot of freedom to create the collections. The owner really trusted my work. So for me, it was very great. But at the same time, I was starting to work on Moda Mochila, and I wanted more time to work on my personal project.
Yeah.
But for many months, I was kind of almost feeling burnt out.
Mm.
So I thought, oh, maybe it's the time to get things organized and find myself again, so I prevent this burnout of happening.
Yeah. And you know what, Mariana? I think that's something that they happen me, like when I come here, I come like a work permit too.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember like these kind of services that they help you to make the resume and the cover letter and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like the girl told me, oh my gosh, Denise, like you made so many things in Argentina because we're Latin. So for our economy, like when you work for a fashion company, I don't know, maybe in a big companies in Argentina and Brazil, maybe no, but I always work for small and medium companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like was doing like so many things, right? Even in my last company in Argentina, it was a medium-sized company, and my boss allowed me to create a fashion brand from scratch. I created how will be the visual merchandising, how we will present the clothes. Even I created this pattern from scratch, and I was going like to the second floor to see how is the cutting, how is everything, how many pieces will we cut. So when you say I was fashion designer, controlling like this the sewers, and I was doing everything, then when I came here, it was like I need to like decide finally which position I want. So for that reason, I choose pattern making because it's my passion. But I had a feeling that when they saw your resume that you can do everything, they were thinking, "Oh my gosh, like she got to."
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good point. In Brazil, I worked in both small
Mm,
and big country in big companies,
mm,
and that's a, like, in my point of view, that's a positive, because then if you are moving abroad, you can kind of tailor your resume depending on which company you want to apply for.
mm, mm,
And
mm.
if a company requires more merchandising knowledge, then you can update descriptions for that. If the company requires more print design, then you can update that as well. But in Brazil, I remember that it was the same as Canada. If the company is bigger,
Mm.
then you do more of the same activities. You don't wear as many hats as if you were working in a smaller brand. And the same happened in Canada.
Mm.
And it's funny that you're talking like we're Latins, we are immigrants. The owner of the company that I was working, this reversible hat company, he was also an immigrant. He was
Mm.
not Latin, he was from Asia,
Mm.
but he also works so hard, and he kind of created this culture for the company.
Yeah.
So it was, everyone was like working a lot,
Mm.
working over hours. um and yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I was I was in this position, I guess.
Mariana, and did you notice like some improvements when you start to make like all the concepts, all the collections, right? Because before they were only making prints, right? You
Mm-hmm.
notice like improvement in sales or even like the feedback of the customers, for example?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. When I started in the company, they only had one or two, like I think it's just two hat categories.
Mm.
They didn't have any concept for the collections. They were just creating randomly hats.
Mm.
So they didn't have this concept created. I had to create that from scratch,
Mm.
and I helped create the range plan for the brand. I improved also the marketing strategies,
Mm.
not only for North America, but also from Asia. They had more direction now on how to create um, the marketing materials.
Mm.
So, well, yeah, I received great feedback from everyone, and I think that's the reason why the boss trusted me,
Mm.
because he knew that I was capable of doing. And at some point, he even started giving me more brands to work on. So I started creating collections not for one, but for three brands at the same time. That was like a compliment
Mm.
and in one side, but he was kind of forgetting the financial compliment. I also wanted to
Yes,
get
and you
paid
and
more.
and you are the only one person, right? Like
Yes.
working 8 hours per day. So it's like,
Exactly. Sometimes more
um,
than 8 hours, because like you want to do your best
I
and
know, and you
be
want to show.
prepared. Yeah.
And when we have passion about that, it's like, well, we
Mm-hmm.
know that how they work. But
Mm-hmm.
well, Mariana, I think that it was a good experience for sure, and I think that it was like very nice to get confidence too.
Yeah.
Because when you are abroad, it's very important to get your confidence again and say, hey, I can do that, and I feel more
Yes.
comfortable with my English and with my skills.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can say the brand that you are currently working, but we will say like it's a very high important outdoor fashion brand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for sure in Canada, it's very important the outdoors. For that reason, I love to work in Canada
Yeah.
because it's like the most technical parts, and I love technical things, right? Maybe because I like numbers,
Yeah.
and and oh my gosh, Mariana, it's like a huge compliment to work there. And how was that? Because currently you are the research and development of raw materials, and I want to ask you, what are you doing in this position, like, because
Mm-hmm.
I never see this position in Argentina, I don't know, in Brazil, but then when I come here I learn like they have like so many positions, right? um and I want to ask you, what are you doing and how was to find this company, because it's like you were working like a fashion designer, so you were thinking, oh, I can do that, like you
Yeah.
have like one moment, or how was the application too?
Yeah, that's right. I think even if we don't say the name, it might be fun for people to try to guess it.
Mm.
If people listening here already came to Canada during the
Yes, and if
winter,
they live in Toronto, they will
yeah,
know.
yeah, I would say that like 9 out of 10 of jackets on the streets there are from this brand. So
Yeah.
it might be interesting to know if people can guess it right. And so for me, it was more like, if you think about it as a game that you're just kind of breaking into levels. When I came to Canada, my first idea was to get a job in one job that had a relation that was related to fashion.
Mm.
Check that box. Found a job at IKEA. Started learning fashion textiles vocabulary. And then I wanted to find a job as a designer. Check, got the job. But I was not 100% happy because I wanted to find a job as a designer in children's wear, which was the same thing that
Mm.
I was doing in Brazil and I was super passionate about. Check that box, got it.
Mm.
But the brand was not so popular in Canada. Most of their sales were from the Asia part of the world. So I wanted to find a job that was more recognized, and a company that was more recognized in Canada. So I started thinking about that, thinking about the idea of working in a bigger brand. And at the same time, I didn't want to find another job in one of those companies that I had to like mentally drain myself again. And that could be meaning moving away from the design like field for a little bit, because I know from my experience that designers, they most of the times they are mentally drained creatively, and they have to work more sometimes in other departments. That's my experience.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if someone here is a designer and works in a company that is like very relaxed, but in my experience it has always been like that. So I started looking for jobs in bigger companies. And as per my experience in Brazil, bigger companies, the job tasks, they're more segmented. If you work in materials, you do only materials. You don't step into design. If you work in as a pattern maker, you do only your pattern making job. So the idea was to find a job in a bigger company, not in the design field, but still in fashion. So I found this job on LinkedIn, and I applied for the to the company, and I sent a message on LinkedIn to the manager of the position, like I was saying, and the wording was something like this: I've already applied for the position on the website, but I wanted to double check what is the best way to reach you, and I included my portfolio and my resume.
Wow.
And the position was for materials and research and materials development world for trims specifically, not for
Mhm.
fabrics. And I had no idea how was to work in that position,
Mhm.
but I fulfilled many of the abilities requested in the position,
Mhm.
such as communicating with suppliers, and that was a good side of my previous job because I had to deal with all the suppliers. I knew how to do that.
Perfect.
So even though it was like very tiring, the
Mm.
job was like very tiring. I
Like all
had the
overwhelmed. Yeah.
yeah, overwhelming.
You learn.
I learned
Yeah.
that skill,
Mm.
communicating with suppliers from overseas. So I reached out, I applied, and the manager replied a message saying, "Oh, we were already looking at your resume, and I'm going to ask the HR team to contact you."
Wow.
And later, I found out that the only two people that were hired for the position, because there were two positions open, we were the only ones that sent a message to the manager on LinkedIn.
Look at this. Mm.
So even even though they were already, some people might think, oh, but they were already looking at your LinkedIn. Does it matter if you send a message? And I say yes, because it confirms that you are actually interested, that you're taking the time to talk to people on LinkedIn, and you are standing out from the hundreds of applicants.
Yeah, so maybe they receive like 100 applicants, right? Like there are
Mm-hmm.
so many. I don't know if they
Yeah.
can read like all the application, right?
No, they use the ATS system.
Yes, but at least like you can send them a message,
Mm-hmm.
and if they don't read it, it's okay. But if they
Mm-hmm.
read it, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's perfect, right?
Mm-hmm. So I've been over the interviews with HR, with the manager, with the director,
Oh.
many people. And at some point, I was kind of thinking that it didn't work because I think
Mm.
it took like maybe a month to go over all of these interviews. And I was on vacation. I went to California for the first time with my husband, and it was almost like a road trip. We flew to Las Vegas. We rented a
Mhm.
car, and we went to San Francisco by car.
Mhm.
We were driving. That was like kind of like a movie. We were driving in Malibu on our way to San Francisco, and then I got the call from the company from HR
My God.
offering me the position. And I was like looking at the sea, telling my husband, "Oh my God, they're calling me." That was magical. And I accepted the
Mhm.
position. to work in this completely new field. But I was confident. I think I was kind of confident that I could make it. It was not a senior position. It was an intermediate position. Like I
Mm-mm.
said, I had already worked with supplies before. I had already worked as a apparel designer for so many years, and that really helps when you are developing trims.
Mm.
So I got a job, and I've been working in this company for over 2 years now. And it's really great because now, like, over the past years, I think I had the chance to grow my podcast, my community of Brazilians that work in fashion a lot. I had the mental space
Yeah.
to work on my personal projects after 5 p.m. So
Mm.
that's really amazing.
Nice, Mariana. I am very happy for you. And okay, so now like my last question to in the podcast is like I want to talk about Moda Mochila.
Hmm.
Moda Mochila, Mariana speak Portuguese, so we will not understand very well. But she interviewed Brazilian that they are working internationally or abroad. And something that I talked with you before to start to recording the podcast, it was like it's very nice to see like maybe this Mariana when she came for the first time to Canada, maybe she was not very confident about her English, and she know that she has to improve her fashion vocabulary English, right? And then you get experience. Now you are working in the fashion industry, and it's like amazing see all these Brazilian people. I never imagined like so many Brazilians they are working internationally. Even in my last factory that I was working here in Burnaby, I was working with a Brazilian.
Whoa, that's
Yes,
amazing.
yes. It's like it's incredible, and even like you teach Brazilian about fashion vocabulary. So I think that at the same time, it's like it's all connected and even
Hmm.
with your story. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the podcast and what did you learn about the podcast?
Yes. Okay, great.
Mm.
So it was my pandemic project. It started as
Mm.
a podcast. I had already been working in the fashion industry here in Canada for a few years, and I really missed chatting with my colleagues, like from
Mm.
the fashion field in Portuguese. And
Mm.
as I was saying, I was working in this company that I was the only creative person there, so I didn't have anyone to connect.
Mm.
And there are no Brazilian, like your colleagues that are Brazilian, you really connect with them in a friendship level that is very hard to find in other
Here.
places. People like Brazilian are super warm. You become like friends for life with the people that you work with. So I really miss that connection, and speaking about fashion in Portuguese. So I
Mm.
decided to create that. And in the beginning, I thought that it would be interesting to interview people that work in fashion abroad. But I had no idea how many Brazilian that were doing that. So I started interviewing my friends that had experiences traveling and moving to other places inside Brazil, like from
Mhm.
state to state,
Mhm.
and eventually starting people from other countries. And long story short, now I've interviewed over 120 people that work not only in Canada, but also in Europe, Asia, North America as a whole. Even people that live have businesses in South America. I've interviewed someone that has a business in Peru. So it has been a like amazing journey, and I my list is so full now. I don't have time in my calendar to interview so many Brazilians that work in fashion, but it's something that I love, like doing this. And it's funny because in the beginning of my career, I wanted to be a fashion journalist. I
Mm.
didn't think about doing design. I only decided to move from journalism to design after that course that I did on high school, and then I fell in love with design. But the idea was to be a journalist. And now I think this is kind of like a full circle. I've always liked this communication field. But looking back, I don't see myself as a fashion journalist. I think this communicator, podcaster, entrepreneur in the media field, it's it it sounds more like me than like serious fashion journalism, I would say. So I'm
Yes,
really happy how that circle, like, it's like coming to
too
like
close. Yeah.
realization. Yeah. So by interviewing all of these people, one of the things that I learned is that almost, I would say that like 95% of them were very insecure about their English level. And when I talk about that, I talk about myself as well. Like I said,
Mm.
in the middle of the podcast, ignorance sometimes might be a blessing. If I didn't know that my English was not ready for a design position, I might have maybe started to apply for design positions earlier, but I felt that I needed to take some time to learn a bit more.
Mm.
And that kind of made me feel a bit insecure about finding a job in Canada, and exploring and like breaking into the fashion industry here. And another thing that I learned was that many women, when they are planning something like that, they're not confident that they're gonna find a job ever. Some of them thought that they would never be able to find a job in another country. And most of the men that I interviewed, they were always confident. They were always, maybe like they were confident, they were thinking their mindset was in the right place. They were
Mhm.
thinking, yeah, of course I'm gonna go there and get a job in fashion, it's gonna be cool. Sometimes it didn't work, but at least their mindset was already different than the women.
Mm.
So I have to maybe do some like further data analysis and make like a real percentage of that. But analyzing like more like whole as a whole, I would say that in general, the people that I interview, the women are less confident when they move, when they think about that. Um, so I think the objective of Moda Mochila is to, one, um, help Brazilians and maybe other people from like Latin America and as a general and as a whole to improve their language skills,
Mm.
specifically about fashion. Because sometimes if you wanna learn everything at the same time, you might get scared that you are not studying enough. But if you want to find a job in Canada, why in fashion, why don't you start by studying fashion vocabulary?
Mm.
So that's why I started talking about that subject on Instagram, also doing podcasts specifically about that theme. And I also started a conversation circle to talk about fashion themes with other Brazilians. And the reason why I started the conversation circle was because it worked for me when I was like in my the beginning of my life in Canada. I was bored to
Mm.
go to the traditional English classes, but
Mm.
I really enjoyed going to the conversation circles in the library and chatting with people and making connections. So I thought that that would be very great. And many friends of mine, they were complaining that sometimes you just get lost in this 9 to 5 jobs and you don't do like fun fashion activities anymore. You just have to do your daily activities. And some of them were already started to lose their passion for fashion
Wow.
because they were not watching runway shows anymore.
Mm.
They were not studying about concepts and trends and history of fashion. So many of my students told me that they started feeling passionate about fashion again after
Listen to
attending,
podcasts.
listening to podcasts, and also attending the conversation circles, because now they have the opportunity to really study something like more deeply instead of just scrolling on social media and reading the taglines and looking at photos. They're actually studying more deeply as we were doing in university. So that's one of the objectives. And the second objective is to create this platform, this virtual community of Brazilians working in fashion, so everyone can like help yourself to find jobs, to improve the portfolio, the resumes, and hopefully that way more women can feel more confident about working abroad and not waiting for like the perfect moment or the perfect English level. So yeah, that's the main objectives of Modern Mochila.
Well, Mariana, I think that we have like so many things in common. Like, I always take classes of dancing, like ballet, and then like acting classes. And I always have the feeling that I have like this passion for the communication. And I was thinking, okay, no, I will only work in fashion, and like acting or dancing is like, no, it's like a hobby. And finally, now in my podcast, I had a feeling that I have to create like this character, like Denise, right? Even in social media, like making interviews, because my Spanish podcast is the most famous one, right? I am trying now to do the English one, but with the Spanish, I learned the same as you, like so many people doesn't follow their dreams because they have like a fear, or they're afraid to do that, or they're afraid to show up, or they
Mm-hmm.
say I don't know what is in the other side. And I was wondering if like what's happening with these women. I think that is maybe something cultural. Like sometimes they make me feel like bad because I am alone here, so I have to pay my rent, my bills, I live alone. And sometimes it's like, oh, because you don't have a man. I am wondering if it's like something cultural too, that maybe like some women we don't feel like very confident that we can do it anyway.
Yeah,
And
yeah, 100%. I think it's yeah, many of these are our cultural barriers that hopefully we will start kind of breaking them over the
Mhm.
years. Yeah, I think that's definitely cultural.
Yes, but I something that I love is like this when I make interviews in the Spanish version, it's like I don't know, sometimes it's like they show up. It's like how you told us, like they try it, right? They don't know if they will work, but finally it's working. And then you can see like so many Latins like working in the fashion industry and making
Mm-hmm.
amazing things. And something that they tell me that they are working and they are listening my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
it's
so
like
cool.
I love podcasts. It's like Instagram, maybe not so much. I only show up because I need to.
Yeah.
But the podcast is like I love to listen. Even I listen to your podcast. It's like I want to listen another creative person, like what they're doing. And it's like today, Mariana, like making this interview, like I feel like very inspiring. Like
So glad
because
to hear that.
yes, but something that I learned about you is like, okay, you have to show up, right? Okay, you know what you have to improve. So you go and you start to improve it. You go to these events and you talk and you present yourself. So show up again. Then about the free courses, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know some opportunity, you go and you do it, right? On even on LinkedIn, like, okay, I want to have this. So you go when you take the decision what you want, and in this case on LinkedIn you send a message to the manager like, hey, I am interested, this is my portfolio. So you don't know if they will read it, but at least you did it, right? So it's like you are very driving, and I think that maybe we are similar too. So I don't know, it's very inspiring. And thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It's like this Brazilian girl living in Canada, working in the fashion industry. She destroyed like all like limitation thought that maybe she had. And now she creates a podcast where she can inspire, help another Brazilians that they want to follow their dreams. And now teach English on fashion. So congrats, Mariana. Like really, it's very inspiring, and thank you for coming to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Denise, for the kind words. It's
Yeah.
so great to be here. I'm also very inspired about your journey, and I'm sure we will connect a lot virtually. It might not be possible to do that in person, but we have so much in common, and I'm so happy to be here and share my journey with everyone. Want to invite anyone here that is listening that wants to maybe learn Portuguese to
Yeah.
listen to my podcast. Maybe in the future, I think it's going to take a long time until we create a English platform, but it might happen someday. So it might be worth to keep following Moda Mochila on Instagram. And yeah, showing up is important, even if it's virtually. Like Denise and I, we connected virtually,
Yeah.
and the more we speak, the
Mhm.
more I feel that I've known you for like such a long time. Sometimes I have this feeling that I interview someone for my podcast and I become friends with this person,
Mm.
and when I go to visit the person on the person's town, I'm like, wait, is this the first time that we are meeting in person? But because it seems that we've known us
For a
since we
long
were
time.
little kids.
Mhm.
So it's, yeah, showing up, and doesn't matter if it's in person or virtually. It's so important, and always, 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 always tell everyone that you work in fashion. It doesn't matter if this the person from the bake shop or the coffee shop, or if it's the bus driver, or if it's someone that works in finance. Tell everyone that you work in fashion, because you never know who might be able to help you or to give you maybe a free advice that could change your
Mhm.
life. So thank
Yes,
you.
and always is there someone to help you. It's something
Hmm.
that I learned. It's incredible. But well, thank you, Mariana. I will leave like all her social media and everything like in the comments below. And thank you, Mariana, and thank you for everyone who is listening working in fashion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today on Working in Fashion. I hope that you enjoy it. If you find value in today's episode, I would greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. For more information of my services or to connect with our guests, visit my website. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.